Good. Diane Santa.
Here.
Rob Coulter.
Present.
Dennis Milborn.
Present.
Nancy Driggs. Donna Edwards. Nancy Mello. Jerry Locken. Billy Byrne. Hopefully will be showing. So I got it at 6:02, Rob, for the record.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd like to make a motion, or entertain one, to speak with the superintendent, and we'll come back to the minutes and leave in regular order afterward. Is there anybody?
Motion to begin with the superintendent.
Good.
Approved. Second.
Sounds good. So Diane and Nancy. Hi, Donna.
Hi. Have you started?
We just did.
Okay.
Just got through the
I
rule.
have to jump on another meeting, but not until later.
Is it the basketball?
As long as we have a quorum. What's that? It's a Zoom, so I'll just go into the room. I have
Sounds
another
good.
meeting, but. Because we don't typically meet on Mondays.
Well, Superintendent Haskins, thank you again for being here with us. Yes, please find a comfortable spot.
Call for a vote on that.
Oh, did we not?
Oh,
I
sorry.
apologize. All in favor?
Aye.
We are unanimous.
Oh, perfect. Yes, of course.
Thanks for keeping me on track, Brian. Well, I understand you've had a chance to look at our information, Superintendent, and
Yes, sir.
review some of the notes we have. We'd had, in her capacity as a private citizen, the chair of the school committee several months ago. I followed up with a courtesy email to her, just let her know you were coming. She said you've spoken, so I feel good that you two are on the same page. And at this point, I'd like to offer you the opportunity to speak regarding schools and the budget process and the charter in general, if anything specific.
Thank you, Mr. Janet. Thanks for the opportunity. I'd like to speak on two matters related to the charter. One simple matter on page 23, excuse me, I may be referring to the wrong document. There is a portion related to the school committee that identifies an election of officers that is annual, in practice that is biannual. So just a recommendation for change to reflect current practice, which is a biannual election of officers. But the major piece is related to the current budget adoption timeline, which ends as late as June 30th. This creates a significant challenge for the Tiverton School Department. A modest shift to earlier adoption would greatly improve stability for students, staff, and the district as a whole. Because the budget is finalized so late in the year, the school department must issue staff layoff notices long before the town council adopts the final unified budget. These notices are required by law and must be based on the worst case scenario, not the most likely scenario. This results in more layoffs than would otherwise be necessary, causing unnecessary disruption, uncertainty, and loss of valued staff. Educators who receive layoff notices understandably begin seeking employment elsewhere. Even when funding is later restored, the district often loses qualified teachers and support staff who have already accepted jobs in other communities. This can weaken programs and directly impacts the quality of education we can offer. A late budget adoption also prevents the district from finalizing class schedules, class sizes, and programming for the upcoming school year. Families and students experience avoidable uncertainty. Earlier clarity would allow administrators to build stronger schedules, preserve programs, and plan responsibly. Now, the town charter provides clear milestones, but many of these dates, particularly around preliminary adoption hearings and council action, could be adjusted to provide earlier certainty for school staffing. Even small shifts in the timeline would create major benefits, such as reducing unnecessary layoffs and preventing loss of staff, strengthening program continuity for students, improving hiring and retention, supporting responsible planning and use of taxpayer dollars, and increasing stability and confidence across the entire community. A more timely finalization of the school portion of the unified budget is possible, and in doing so, Tiverton can ensure that staffing decisions reflect actual financial conditions and protect our educators.
Thank you. There's been a bit of discussion to date regarding this topic. We recognize the challenges it creates for you. Today is, as Diane might have shared, when we were hoping to talk about the budget. Does anybody have any questions for the superintendent?
So could you just, you opened by saying you would like it moved sooner?
Yes,
And what kind of a date are you considering?
we, by statute, must provide layoff notices by June 1st, which means the May school committee date. School committee meets twice monthly, the second and fourth Tuesday of the month. Now, the school committee may hold a special session for layoff notices, so we wouldn't necessarily be held to those two dates. But even a month earlier for adoption, well, I would say maybe even 5-6 weeks earlier than June 30th would provide us enough time to give those notices that would reflect the more actual budget scenario instead of the worst case scenario.
When I was looking at the timeline earlier, I even thought of all of the work that would need to be done on your end once you have a final number. That requires going back and readjusting staffing, so it's a big process to make adjustments to the budget once you have the final number. It's different than what you were asking for, so. And I appreciate your comments about continuity of programs and staff retention, and also student retention. So many times when we don't know what the budget is going to be and it's getting late in the year, we have parents who leave. We have parents who pull their kids because they don't know if it's going to be worst case scenario. So I think that the stability for the schools and the community would be a benefit to having it be an earlier date. And some districts receive their final budget amount as early as March 30th. So waiting that long into June is just, it's not good practice at all.
Is there any, I should know this, but I don't, or at least I'm not remembering if there is there any state requirement? Does the state in any way control when we have to have our budget? Do you know, Rob? Is there any?
Not that I know of.
I think when we looked at this earlier, there wasn't anything, because we had the discussion of moving it back to Q3.
Yeah.
So I don't know that there's a state requirement on when it has to be finalized.
Okay.
But in your case, with June 1st as your layoff date, that's by contract.
Well, it's state law.
It's state law.
State, okay, even more binding.
Yeah.
Even a June 30th budget date is difficult for you to make your plans.
A June 30th budget adoption date would require for the school department to lay off more educators than might be necessary, because we would have to project based on the worst case scenario. Having preliminary budget figures prior to the June 1st notice would allow the school district to only lay off those teachers and support staff that we knew were absolutely necessary. Because after June 1st, by statute, the school department may not lay off any employees, any certified employees, which then unfortunately puts the school department in deficit, or forced to make cuts in other areas. Now, salaries and benefits represent greater than 80% of the district's budget, so we'd really be hard pressed to find where to reduce those expenditures elsewhere.
What would be your ideal target date?
Well, ideal target date would be, as Ms. Senna has mentioned, March, somewhere in March would be ideal for the school department. However, we could make adjustments to our budget as late as May.
Anybody have any questions? While we have the luxury of having the superintendent here with us?
He knows the only thing I would ask him is to bring back to our school system the feeling that was there when I worked in the school system, where it was a second home, not only to the staff, but to many of the students. They treated it as a second home. So if things were going bad at home, they knew they could walk into that school and feel safe and secure at that time. And just from talking to people in the community and kids and whatnot, it's missing just that little bit.
Thank you for your input, and yes, and I hope you had a nice reunion for the class of 74?
75.
75.
Yes, we did, and they, the cheerleaders decided they were going to do a cheer and do a pyramid.
Uh-oh.
The current ones, I hope.
The
not
current ones will
75.
be,
No, the ones from 1975. Liz Fields, Karen Small.
How'd it
And
go?
put it this way, being the coach and, person I am, I was the spotter. I made sure
Good Lord.
if they were gonna fall, at least they'd be safe. And they did cheer. They did 2 cheers.
And they did the pyramid,
Yes,
okay?
but
In their Sunday best.
in the Sunday best.
That's
But
right.
the big joke
wasn't
amongst
there.
us was,
I didn't graduate.
when we
from
were
Tiverton.
juniors and seniors, they turned the courtyard. That's where I could smoke. And we had to sit in order to get that to be the smoking area.
Now, you probably know this, but you may no longer smoke within 800 feet of a school
Yes.
building.
Yeah,
And since your visit a few months ago, you'd be pleased to see the seasonal decorations that were provided through a donation from Leo's Greenhouse.
all right.
It just looks
Awesome.
very
I
nice.
was
Yes.
there
seasonal
today at
plants.
the school and it
Yeah.
does, it looks very nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That'll be
very good.
yeah.
And I'm sure the superintendent would like to put a plug in for the CTE open house. It's this week, I believe.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Anna. We absolutely would like to invite all members of the public, especially those with middle school aged children or grandchildren, to attend our Career and Technical Academy open house this Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Oh, all right. I thought it was just for middle school parents. So it's, in essence, the whole community.
Is invited. We're
Keep going.
we're targeting prospective students, of course, but the community is invited to attend. You can see.
I think that's the important thing, is to get the community to that high school to see what's there.
There are some great things happening, and we have career and technical education programs in computer science, engineering, law enforcement, plant science, certified nursing assistant, marine carpentry.
The certified discipline, when, granted, I'm one of the older ones here.
You know.
When I entered that school, they had the Candy Striper program at the high school. So that any teenager that wants to go and help at any of the hospitals, they had the Candy Stripe program there at the school.
One can graduate as a senior with a credential as a CNA and start the field of employment immediately after high school through that
All
program.
right, very good.
Jerry, do you have any questions, comments about the budget timeline, having been on the school committee and walked that line?
No, the superintendent is correct that pushing it this late has been very problematic for the last, well, I guess it's been 3 years, I think. So, no, I guess it's 4. Anyway, although I will also say, in my opinion, that is the least of the problems with the budget process right now. But that, because of the statute and the collective bargaining agreements and the way the sort of nature of primarily teacher employment works, you're at a disadvantage.
Any thoughts on the budget process regarding the role of the budget committee, presentations to the budget committee, either from
From
either
me
of
or
you?
from-
Yeah, I mean, the committee has talked about it quite a bit, but we'd love to hear if you have any, thoughts on that and that might inform our recommendation.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The town council doesn't act as a body for the entire town, meaning representing the municipal budget and the interests of the school budget. It works as a body representing the interests of the municipal budget. That's the fundamental problem with it. There's too much power concentrated in that body in fashioning and then adopting the budget, and the obstacles to present an alternative budget are too great, and have never been smooth and or rational ever in this town, as far as I'm concerned. Those are the things we can control. The things that we can't control are the fluctuations in state aid, as well as the budgeting process for special education. And then the other third variable that there is marginal control over, and I say marginal because there is some control, but every time you execute a contract with any of the unions, you are then compelled to go forward in the next 2 budget years to be able to, you have to fight for those, for any increases. And so that does 2 things. It puts the district at a position of always wanting to start the negotiation from 0, because there's no capacity to guarantee that you're going to be able to get that money. And then every time you have a 0 year, then you are putting the district further behind in terms of being competitive with other districts. It's actually the opposite of what this, so the collective bargaining units get accused of leapfrogging. They get a 30% increase in Barrington, and so then every other town has to follow suit. It's actually the opposite of that. If one town is able to execute no increased teacher contracts, then that also keeps the other towns down, and it keeps Rhode Island generally down, so that people can go to Massachusetts and make much more money. There are 2 things that have driven the deficits, although I haven't paid that much attention to the school budget for a year, and it's been a nice break. There are two things that really have driven the deficits in the school district's budget. The first is the fact that we had I'm sorry to rehash history, but it was fiscal year 21, because it was the budget that was adopted it wound up being the fall of 2020. There was no increase because there was a real fear that there was not going to be sufficient municipal revenue. It turned out that actually the town had a great year fiscally. They never restored any ability for us to catch up from that year. And history matters in this case. The school district still has not recovered from that. And they never will, probably. So that's one thing. And then the second is the loss year over year of state funding. That no one from RIDE nor the tax, no one can satisfactorily explain exactly. They can tell me the math, but they can't tell me why Tiverton's grand list value skyrocketed. And I'm gonna get the percentage wrong, but I want to say it was like 60% or something. It was a really big number that the assessed property values of Tiverton went way up compared to similar type towns, and that is one of the prime drivers of the school funding formula.
That and student population.
Yeah, but student population actually has decreased,
Right.
but you're held harmless year on year for that, for the most part. So, and I don't know I don't have the actual enrollment now. I don't know, superintendent probably does. But actually, we are not that dissimilar from other districts in terms of overall loss of population. Rhode Island is growing older, and the overall decrease in student population everywhere is about I want to say it's about 5% over the last 3 to 4, maybe 10 years. Something
Jerry,
like that.
how's the proposed housing that we're getting in here going to affect all that?
It's impossible to predict. Well, you can predict. It's impossible to know in any real sense. Anytime you build housing, Tiverton never seems to happen in Tiverton. That's part of the problem. Is that we sort of say, oh, we're going to have 1,000 units, and that's going to represent 200 kids or some. I'm just pulling those numbers out of the air. It hasn't. I don't think that any of the development in town has been so substantial that incremental decrease in student, school age population sort of accounts for the increases in housing. So, I mean, if you put in a development of 600 houses or 600 units, and you truly had a bump in the school district's population, the student population of 100 or more, that would have a significant impact on. Well, again, it depends on where they were distributed age-wise. So if it's a random scatter across all 12 grades, it would have less impact than if it was very young families who are coming with 2 kids in the elementary schools.
And that's been part of the issue with decline in enrollment. It's not
Correct.
that easy to decrease the budget because they're coming from all different grade levels. So it doesn't equate to just, eliminating 1 or 2
Right.
teachers, because it just means the numbers at those grade levels might be a little bit
Right.
smaller. So,
Yeah, and maintaining 3 neighborhood type elementary schools was great, but it gives you even less flexibility. I think that's what I think was found.
Right. One of the things that we've talked about is increased transparency around school funding and what the numbers are for the school district, and making the budget process accessible to more people within the community so that they understand it better. So that is one of our goals that we've talked about. And I'm not quite sure how we do all of that, and some of it relates to public meetings with the budget committee, meetings with the town council, and how do we allow an opportunity for public input during those meetings, and how do we allow the public access to information so that they better understand the challenges of the schools and the budget process, so.
Well, I think you raise an important point. One of my goals is to promote transparency with the school budget. We're starting now to meet with our building leaders to begin to develop some parameters around building the budget. As you might imagine, there's very little discretionary line items within the budget. The vast majority of a school budget goes to contractually identified salaries and benefits, greater than 80%. And then other fixed costs, such as transportation, special education, utilities. There is a little bit of flexibility within professional development, supplies and materials. And then within the supplies and material budget, some decisions can be made. This year, we are building a participatory budgetary process, beginning in November and December, identifying community members who would have some input on some of those discretionary line items. Transparency doesn't mean that everybody gets part of the decision, because as I said, a lot of those obligations are fixed. But there may be some items that members of the community would have input on related to some of the discretionary spending. Our process begins this week, meeting with the building principals, identifying opportunities within our operational budget, within the consolidated resource program, which by law does require public participation. Those are all the entitlement grants from the federal government, Titles 1, 2, 3, 4. So seeking some public input on those decisions, so the public can expect communication from my office over the next several weeks prior to the winter holiday break, to outline the process and then to get some public input on matters of the budget that we would consider to be more discretionary. Similarly, I have developed a good working relationship with our town administrator, so I am communicating with Patrick Jones about school district priorities, so that he's in the loop about the school district, and he in turn is communicating with me about municipal priorities as well. So working on developing that relationship between the school department and the town should help with our goal of transparency.
Very good.
So can I ask a question, how this actually works? So the school department, and I gather you're starting now to pull together a budget, and then you submit it ultimately to the town administrator.
Well, first it goes to the school committee.
Right,
Mm.
right,
For
but once the
approval.
school committee approves,
Mhm.
once the school's done with what they need to do with the budget, then it goes to the town administrator, correct?
Not for approval.
From a ministerial point of view, it goes to the town administrator, but it goes to the town council for discussion or any kind of decision making. So,
That's what I'm having trouble trying to ascertain. At what point, it just says the town council shall prepare a unified
Right.
budget. It doesn't indicate any process of how they
No,
get to that?
well, there is some process, there are dates, and then there's the requirement for the financial town hearing.
Right.
And then also if there's a alternative budget
No, I
submitted.
understand that part,
Yeah.
but getting before the town, the public.
Yeah,
hearing,
so you're right, it's a big black hole
it's a
between the
huge
time,
hole.
that the school department submits its budget to the time that the town council adopts its preliminary budget, which right now is
May
the end of,
15th.
yeah. It's a black hole. In some years, there have been literally no meetings between the town council and the school department until late April. They've had meetings with departments of the municipal government, but there was very little. And to the point, clearly the previous town administrator and the previous superintendent did not get along. And so there was very poor communication between the two of them. But you're right, it is not specified in the town, in charter, exactly what's supposed to be happening in that,
Either the
in
school
that time.
department or the budget.
Anybody.
Who also
No,
comes up with
it's completely, and this is, it is a vestige, I suppose, of when the budget committee had more authority over what budget was submitted. And that's, I misspoke a little bit. The budget committee is holding its meetings as well.
Correct.
That then makes a recommendation to the town council.
Except it's not phrased that way, it's very weird.
No, and in the prior iteration of the charter where this budget committee had a more overt authority over the budget, then it was equally, unspecified about what the budget committee did, but they were, but they were left to organize themselves and do their work as they saw fit, and they always did. There was never, I don't think there was anything ever problematic about how the budget committee went about its business.
I agree.
But now, I think that you've given the town council the responsibility and authority over the budget process. Without that specification, they're distracted by everything else that's going on. They're functioning as the town council, but they're also they're functioning de facto as the budget committee.
Yeah.
So, in certain years, there's very little attention paid to anything, but then in other years, there's more attention paid. So, or has been.
It depends on the budget committee.
Well, it depends on a lot of things. One of which is, does the state, cut $3 million from your state aid? That's happened. Maybe it was 2.4, 600,000 between friends, right? So, that certainly prompted different types of meetings, but those weren't very constructive. It was all a lot of, grandstanding and confrontation. Having been there.
My only comment, it's nice to meet you, thank you for coming. I have some experience on the town council and the budget committee. My wife was once on the school committee, I think, with Jerry once upon a time. And
I was her successor.
Oh, okay.
We didn't know overlap.
So, this is a little bit of a statement of the obvious, but I've said in some prior meetings that at some level, whatever the timing may be, and I don't sense there's much disagreement here that the earlier is probably better at some level, but there'll always be pressures. Sometimes later information will come in, sometimes. To me, it just seems like over the long run, the only real thing we can do about it is to try to develop reserves. I know that's really easy to say. And it's a little bit like the analogy, a little more simple is, how much sand and salt do we need at the DPW for, we don't really know. If we get 4 blizzards in a row, we can't have unlimited amounts. So And one thing that nobody said tonight, but we have discussed before, is also special education, which is, can be dramatic swings of cost, and for good reason. So I don't think that, I'm not aware, based on my observations or experience, that there's really any way to budget with certainty on special ed. I mean, you can make your predictions and maybe do some really statistical analysis, but there will always be that risk that will, and so to me, the goal over time, I think, has to be a reserve, a contingency reserve, and then to somehow find a way, and this is part of the struggle that I've kind of fought, mostly unsuccessfully for many years, is how can you have a true reserve that's there in a way that is not
Touchable.
yeah, I don't know, to say this a little bit delicately, that both in terms of some folks, and I'm one of them, that is sort of on the taxpayer advocate side, as well as, perhaps if you were in labor negotiations and you have this sort of bolus of cash sitting there, that's your true reserve for a revenue shortfall, for special ed, for, whatever the case may be, fuel going. I mean, we've had 40% inflation in just the last few years, right? So, I don't know that we'll solve that tonight, but I wanted, because it's nice to have you here. This is something I've been kind of railing on for many years. Hasn't happened yet, but I think that might be the only way over time. There are restricted accounts, though, that you could set up, right?
You could. There was actually a fairly decent reserve probably 5 years ago. And it went to exactly what you're talking about. So, and it wasn't a restricted receipt account, but it was actually fairly jealously guarded. There was one year when the school department did not put in any increase in its budget, and that was because we were running in the black year over year, and so that was the advice of the finance subcommittee of the school committee. And they said, but then things turned around, and I would tell you that one of the things that actually whittled away at that reserve was special ed going up. So it had been actually fairly modest increases for several years, and that's really where the reserve came from, as well as,
Everything.
I'm trying to get to what actually, where did the reserve come from? Some of it came from very lucky or very good years of special education at the same time, not rising dramatically at the same time that we were able to fund the budget, more generously, as well as, I want to say 6 years over the course of 10, where the teachers took zeros, and that, had a cost. And then the original genesis of it was the actual wastewater. That was the first kind of deposit into the reserve, about $300,000 was the wastewater settlement.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly what the specifics were, but anyway, that's that. And then it grew for about probably 8 years, and it was probably about $3 million. Some of that went as well to some of the really very badly needed renovations in the schools, the high school and the middle school. Some of that was bonded, but actually some of it, about $2 to $2.5 million, was on like draft walls and ceiling tiles and lighting and some other stuff that was really needed. And then the other two things that have really hurt the district, over the long term, have been transportation increases. It's basically a monopoly. One would actually probably better characterize it as a, sort of a RICO type situation. Strangely, there's two companies and they all, they're very circumspect about where they bid, and one doesn't bid in one's town, the other doesn't bid in the other's town.
Yeah.
So there's been very little control over transportation costs, and then healthcare has been an issue, and energy costs.
thanks for listening again to Rob on reserves. But it sounds like there's a mechanism there, one way or another.
I mean, it would be an interesting thing to propose that, you know, the schools keep 3% the same way that the town is supposed to, and, you know, that it be restricted.
Right, with the supermajority vote of the committee.
Right.
Release.
But you'd have to establish it.
Sure, it would take time, but you gotta start somewhere, almost like an
Yeah.
endowment. There's some other things we've talked about too, like, you know, if there was a way, let's say you had a budget line item and you know, you budgeted 1,000 and you came in at 800 of having 50/50, so 50% of that savings is automatically restricted and kept, so the, you know, we've all heard in government how it's this sort of use it or lose it mentality, so
Yeah.
50 can be released to more of a general account, but 50 can be protected.
If you had such
So-
years, that would be great. The thing that if you went back and inspected the budget to actuals over the last 5 years, you'd be shocked at how close they were.
Yeah.
So,
Correct me if I'm wrong, weren't there some years where people or budget committees or whatever took some of that money that was in reserve to lower people's taxes?
you can't take it from the schools.
No, not from the schools, but
Not
didn't
from
that
reserve.
happen?
Took it from the town, yeah.
The general town, sure.
Well,
Yeah, from the
The-
general,
Correct,
yes,
from the
there
general
were,
fund.
it was about $800,000.
So,
It was like 2013 or 14.
But not from the reserved funds. That would be from the
Right.
unreserved.
They're unrestricted general fund.
Yes, the unrestricted general fund, not from the,
So I'm proposing a
So you
restricted
can-
general fund,
right.
particularly for things
For-
like, you know, buildings, special education, maybe,
Yeah,
maybe
but-
even labor at some level, right?
But-
I mean, I remember
Yes.
talking about this very issue on budget committee for years, way back, with Laura Epke and Chris Cotter. And having voters understand that the taxes that they're paying to run the town may not all be used, and that is the thing with restricted funds. To put it off into another fund and save it for a rainy day, you have to have people understand that that's what they're doing when they pay their big tax bills. Not all of it is going to run the town.
That's just.
Well, if you were intentionally trying to build a reserve,
I'm
yes.
saying, right, and that can be a hard sell for some people.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, yeah.
That you're like the keeper of
Yeah.
the taxes and.
But in lieu of that, they make an assessment. You know, somewhere they're
Well, we
gonna-
get
they're gonna have
assessments
to
every
come
10
up,
years.
they're gonna
It's,
find
you know,
money, so.
We just put a big,
The other thing, I'm sure you thought of this, but special education in particular, is there any way to do like almost a little mini insurance, but like a risk pool with the county?
We had that. I
And
mean,
say, anytime a case goes over, say, $250,000, you kind of dip into the county pool or some kind of cost sharing, you know, a lot of folks are doing that, a lot of organizations and.
So there was a time when Middletown, Portsmouth, Tiverton, and Little Compton were a special education district.
correct.
And some employees were employees of the district and some employees were employees of the, what do we call it, the
Newport
collaborative,
County
something?
Special
Yes, it's a collaborative.
Yeah, so then Portsmouth thought that they could, you know, do better financially by coming out. They came out,
Right.
that left Little Compton, Middletown and Tiverton. The cost savings seem to be getting smaller. Ironically, Portsmouth was actually did not save money and they wound up spending more money. I think at the end of the day, and so it was ultimately dissolved. There's a purchasing collaborative as well. I don't know how much that really saves us. but
Yeah.
maybe the superintendent could.
That's the trick with any insurance market. If you
Right,
don't
and so,
have enough
yeah,
people-
I don't know what kind of an underwriter would actually get into that business.
Yeah.
I don't think that there is such a thing, but, what there should be is a greater risk pool, if you wanna call it that, for the state. That's the problem, is that, it's a problem nationally, is that, education relies on local property taxes. And so that's, you can argue that's a good thing because it gives an enormous amount of local control, but it's a bad thing because it makes you completely dependent on the locality for the quality of the education that you're receiving. That's American society writ large.
I seem to recall a few years ago, we had a child enter the school system with severe
So,
needs.
yeah, so that is one of the things that drives the special education budget, is that it's, an IEP is written to educate the child in the least restrictive manner possible. A small district can have several very high cost students enter the district. High need is a better way of putting it, definitely. And especially, and I don't think it ever did pass, but when you start to talk about the out-of-district placements, there's almost no control over those costs. And there was supposed to be legislation that restricted the out-of-district placement tuitions from being limited to no more than a 10% increase, I want to say was the number. And you may remember better than I do, or maybe the superintendent does. So, but I don't think that ever even passed. So you are beholden to both high needs students, coming into the district, and then if that high need student in their IEP has a very high cost out of district placement, and that's what I mean. We had probably 7 years where our special education costs were not rising that dramatically, and then they really started to rise around 2019, 20, which was also the same year that we got zero and COVID. And
That's where if we had that special education reserve.
we did actually, there was actually a special education reserve that was, every year, we got money from the trust, I wanna say. And it was about, it would be like between $50,000 and $100,000. And it was banked
Yeah.
for many years. And it was at about $2 million, and then that got burnt through as the special education costs started to rise fairly dramatically in 2019.
I'm unfamiliar with the proposed legislation that would cap an increase at 10%.
It didn't pass. This was
Yeah.
3 or 4 years ago, I want to say.
I am aware of current lobbying.
It was just out of district placements. It wasn't special education.
Okay. There is some effort to increase the threshold for out-of-district costs. Currently, the school district receives a very modest reimbursement based on a formula. There is effort right now to increase that amount. But the Tiverton School District's obligation for out-of-district special education costs right now is over $3 million annually.
So
Pretty
that's
substantial.
That,
3 million for special ed?
That's only
Probably
for students
7% of the
educated
budget.
out of district. Our cost for special education is much higher than that, but just for students who are educated out of district. And, one of the challenges is that when the special education law was enacted in 1972, Public Law 94-142 was enacted by Congress in 72 with the promise to fund special education at 40%. It has never come close. Our consolidated resource program for special education is only about $100,000.
Out of 3 million?
No, total for the entire district. Now, we employ several special educators in the district. Most of those salaries are paid out of operational, not out of federal entitlements.
I'm
Is
gonna
there
say
a
that
reason for this huge
the
increase?
special education budget overall is probably closer to 8 or 9 million, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this
And
is
it's
just the out of
growing.
district placements.
It's
Those are the
growing.
highest of the high for special education. But about, I wanna say close to 600 kids probably have IEPs.
We are at 18%. I think you're about right.
18% of the
18.
students have IEPs.
That's correct, which is slightly higher than the state average of 15%.
So there's probably 1,700 kids in the school.
I think our enrollment is around 15 currently.
Okay.
15 and change.
Yeah.
That's not all out of district, is it?
No,
Wasn't the school budget somewhere around 35? This?
It was, I wanna say it was 35 in FY 24, which is probably the last time I really looked at it.
Some 38 maybe now, 39. You're talking 30, solid 30+% of your budget is for this purpose alone.
it's a significant figure, yes.
I don't know that we're gonna solve the problem
No.
of funding
No.
the schools tonight,
Yeah.
but from what I'm hearing, and I'm open to more discussion as we go through this, obviously, but, so the timeline for the budget process is something maybe this group wants to look at. Rob has mentioned creating a reserve, which is certainly maybe a harder road to hoe for us, but the timeline is something that is in the charter that we definitely have an impact, if we choose to, on how that works. Jerry has shared that you get most of your, we get the estimated state revenue in January. Actually, was that Denise? Was that?
I believe so, yeah.
Was that when she was?
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
mean, so the governor has to present a budget in January. And that
Yeah.
usually, that includes state aid to education, and it usually doesn't change that much. If anything, it will go up if you're looking like you're gonna lose money.
And that's where
It
we
doesn't usually go down from that
started with
number.
that first January 15 meeting here, where we would have the budget committee, school committee, and
Just preliminary
the preliminary
look at
workshop.
things.
But understanding the process, as a number of the members here on the commission who have been on the budget committee know, the meetings that are necessary.
Mhm.
You can't get away from having the meetings with the departments, with the schools. The schools, we had 2 to 3 to 4 meetings with them in the course of the developing the budget and going through their budget proposals. So I'm just looking in my mind at the timeline that we're gonna need to create here, and the superintendent's timeline of just starting in November is
But you won't have the
maybe not
budget.
that crazy for when the
No,
whole
there
budget
isn't
process
any
needs
reason
to
why
be
you
beginning.
shouldn't. And, I don't know, maybe make them, make it more explicit that there has to be a certain process followed. I don't know. It's, yeah.
They've done their, the budget committee had, this year, we sat through meeting with them, unfortunately. It was a different year, a year that's never been experienced before. They had no carryover leadership, and they had very little guidance.
Huh.
Well, the people that had been carryovers left. So they didn't have, there's not a playbook for them on how to do it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but did we hear that none of them were elected because no one ran, so they were all just people who were asked, would you be on the budget committee? So it
Yes,
was a
you're
group
right.
that came together, but they didn't have a playbook.
Didn't Dave Perry I know,
It's on the town council.
It's on the town council. All right, never mind. There was somebody who,
Dan Darren
Right.
was the only carryover that stayed through the whole process. Mary Walnut did the work.
It didn't have to do as
Left
much
to work.
with them not having that, it had to do with this
But
process.
it also, I do believe it also ties into what Jerry so aptly called the sort of black hole.
Yeah,
That if I
it's-
were somebody new to the budget committee, and I've been on the budget committee in the prior years, it doesn't look you like you have any job to do.
Yeah.
I
How
think it
do
has
you
more to
prepare a
do with this
unified budget
process
if you don't have any
than the
guidance?
people.
That's,
Come on,
agree.
No,
there's
I
never been a
agree.
playbook,
Yeah.
we've always had a budget committee,
But
and
you
it's always
had-
functioned.
But you had
They can't
longevity of
find
people
their
on the
home
committee
here.
to keep the process going.
Correct. but
Without
nobody-
that, in looking at the process here, it wasn't enough.
No, it wasn't enough for them, but every budget person, whether you're appointed or whether you're elected, they should have been elected, but we didn't have enough candidates. They don't really need a playbook, or they shouldn't have been saying, yes, I'll get on the budget committee. We all know what the budget committee has been in this town. We all know the strength of it, and
but I,
to me, the process that is spelled out for them here is the problem.
you mean
Doesn't
that they
give
don't-
them any authority as
Correct,
elected
right.
officials.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say.
So it's creating the problem.
You're
You know,
absolutely
I
right.
keep hearing these people weren't trained, couldn't find.
No.
Come on, we've always, that town hall will give you, that treasurer will give you any number you want.
Yep,
They just don't have any authority.
I mean,
The-
I don't think anyone has ever had a problem getting numbers. I think you need to take the initiative. They didn't follow through enough with the initiative. You can't sit back and say, who's gonna hand me the information? Because it doesn't fall from the sky. You gotta go look for it, and you gotta have the initiative to do it. But with this process, it held them back a little. What is my mission here? I don't know.
well, I think there was no institutional memory because it's always been in the people that, because they had overlapped terms, just like they do on the school committee. So they had overlapped terms, so there was always some institutional memory. But you don't have institutional memory when you can't even get people to run for the seats to begin with. And the
But
reason
some
why
of
they
the
won't,
members
and
were
the, and
still-
and the reason why and the reason why people don't run for the seats to begin with is because they have no authority. They're, you know, their authority was taken over by the town council. So,
And I remember when they came before us, one of the members said, we were told we're just advisory. I'm not just
Right.
advisory, that's not what I'm doing here.
but I think that's also why there's, you know, no real interest in being on it.
I
So,
agree.
might as well just get rid of it, or, actually go back to giving them some authority so that there's actually some reason why they're
And
doing
there's
the work
some,
that they're
and
doing.
there's some balances that.
Well, and I think it's too much for the town council to take, and I also think that they are not objective.
I agree.
Well, I don't know if we're,
I don't know,
I don't know
that's,
if you want the superintendent.
yeah.
I would love to. You're here.
it's the time you're gonna call, you probably have a life.
Well, it has been a long day, but I want to just extend my appreciation to the Charter Review Commission for hearing my concerns about the timeline. And I appreciate the work that you do. And Dr. Larkin, it's a pleasure to meet you.
So do you.
And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you for
You're welcome.
coming. Thank you.
Yeah, let's be in touch.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
And it's Wednesday, correct? The CTE pro?
That's, yes, Wednesday evening,
Wednesday.
6 PM at the high school.
All right,
Yeah, hope to see you there. All right,
thank you.
you're welcome.
So,
Go ahead, Rob, what do you look at?
We cleared all that up.
Is that like the engineering program across the state? Is that what we're talking
You might say it's a
project, they do
project.
Project Lead the
Like we
Way.
were talking about.
Engineering, which is.
Tiverton has announced it
Yeah.
at this point.
Yes.
Okay, great, I'll be there. Thank you. Sorry.
Yes, it is.
So
Took
are
us
we
a
now,
while to get it going.
are we now gonna look at the role of the budget committee, or are we gonna look at the
Oh, we're
budget
gonna approve
timeline?
minutes.
We gotta approve
Return to the
minutes.
regular order.
Thank you.
I think we should move these
Bring us
tables too.
back.
This is really,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah,
crazy.
let's,
Awkward. People with their backs to each other.
Let's look at each
I'm on
other.
my best behavior, let me see.
I got my bag.
Freezing.
Yeah, that's why I wore this sweater.
That's trade, that's for.
So
like,
that's,
back
Nancy, I'm
to
gonna
school.
move this.
Way back when.
You wanna be at the, you wanna be at the head? Is this gonna work? Let's do this. Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Yep, good.
It's
You
fine.
can come
I'll
join
sit
us,
on there.
Jerry.
It's fine.
6 o'clock. Bring kids down, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That was my
The way
husband's
this-
sweater. It is cold. The heat probably goes off automatically.
Can I stand for you?
Yeah.
I'm sure it turns off. Promise not to. And I'm a lefty, so. All right, minutes.
It'll take 30 minutes.
We are posted okay. Sorry, I didn't get back to
I
it.
did, I saw the agenda. Thank you.
I'm just I got a couple more meeting minutes to catch up on, but I'm working on it.
I'm not sweating that, Mr. Mitchell. I didn't want to not have, I didn't want to have to cancel tomorrow. So, no, you're on top of it, thanks, man.
So we're back to general admin
Not
and
for
then minutes, if
nothing,
you
we've
would.
decided we're, I want to say adversary, that's not the right word, advisory, correct? Kind of, and we're here.
Well, hold on, when we
And
say
we're
we
doing-
decided, I didn't decide
No,
that.
I said, you know,
We
by
decided not to
default.
press the
But I'm
matter.
just saying, the budget committee, they felt like they were advisory. We feel like we're advisory, but we're still doing the job,
They were told they were
and we're here.
advisory.
Yeah,
But
that's
we're
true.
here.
There wasn't a full slate of
They
candidates who
met.
were doing the work.
I know that they met because the council member that's a liaison would leave my house and go to the meetings.
Right,
I know, well, I haven't enjoyed every single meeting here.
correct.
And I
Here
don't
we are.
like the idea that we don't have more authority than we have.
But you're
Well, you're
still doing
committed
the
to it,
job.
so you do it.
Correct.
Right.
Let's approve the minutes.
All right, let's go on to approval of the minutes of November 4th meeting.
Well, technically,
Has
general
everybody had an
admin's first,
opportunity?
sorry.
Any
General
complaint?
admin, or,
Oh, we get that one still. Yes, please.
Is there an internet password here?
Yes,
nobody knows it. Oh, you got it, okay.
it's
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah, it's posted.
It's,
on the board over there somewhere.
yeah, I don't wanna say it on camera.
It's right over there.
Why, if you come here, you can get it.
That's true, but
What happened? We're down to 8.
She went to a bar.
Okay, she'll be back. All right.
Don't speak it. But that's it.
eat it.
Oh,
Thank you. Mike is the best.
I found it. It's like, it's gotta be hanging up somewhere. I think it's for the guest, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I went in as a guest.
General admin items and updates.
I just have, I will be increasingly annoying about minutes. It's my goal to have all of them done.
Okay.
That's all right, I can't even.
The only ones I
can't
struggle
even
with are the ones that
print
if
them,
I'm not here, that's where I get a little fuzzy, so,
That's because
And any one of those
Standing
meetings-
is fussy.
no, it's just, I lose my momentum and
Robin,
it's
any
my
one of
fault.
those meetings that you weren't
You have
here,
to stop
you'd like
traveling the world.
to take a screenshot of my notes,
Yeah.
whether it helps or not, it's.
I mean, worst case scenario, we didn't really take any formal votes, so we'll comply, but I just wanna let you know that that's on my mind.
so how many don't you have, Rob? How many do you not have?
I have, I think there's just 2 or 3 from earlier in the summer that just got a little wonky, so I'm trying to tackle one a day. So I'll be in touch.
So
and-
this is November 4th, right?
That's the approval, yes, that we're
Okay,
looking at.
just-
Are we all set with general admin and
We're right back here tomorrow.
we're right back here tomorrow, correct?
Are we here?
Or library, I thought.
No, we're at the
Right here.
library.
Right here.
Senior center.
Yep,
Senior Center, we're here.
We're here
Really?
or at the library?
right here,
Oh,
right here.
sorry, I thought we were at the
That's okay.
library.
We'll have the chair set up for the chair yoga.
Couldn't you have done this just a continued meeting?
All right, if
They
there's
took a
anybody, any
vote,
questions or
remember?
comments on November 4th's minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve.
Oh,
You
go ahead.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes for November 4th,
I second.
and Nancy seconds.
Nancy, all in favor? I see all the hands.
Good job.
Thank you.
Not looking for.
All right,
Can't do that.
acknowledgement, potential discussion received and potential new proposed charter changes, including public input. Have we, any input from external to this group?
Quick comment, when I was speaking with Mike Gates from the Harbor Commission, I mentioned to him that we've been trying to get in touch with his group and if they had feedback on the charter, and he will be reaching out to me, so we exchanged contact information. I guess they had a change in membership on their committee, so that's why there was a lag in getting
Weren't
back
they
to
waiting
us.
for a plan to be completed or something?
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
The group is meeting in there.
It's the
Harbor
Harbor
Commission.
Commission is meeting in there.
Here, right now?
Right now, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, any other new potential input? All right, if we move on to item 5. General review, discussion of existing charter and potential proposals for charter changes, including potential voting by commission on recommended proposals. We had been speaking about the budget, we spoken about the budget earlier tonight. Is there any discussion on the budget? Anybody have any thoughts on it? It's kind of tongue in cheek.
Well, I wanted to pick off where Jerry, I agree completely that we should either eliminate the budget committee or, as I've already argued and will continue to argue, it should have, if it doesn't already, I think Nancy's of the opinion the charter actually says that it does, or doesn't say that it doesn't have access to the ballot. I would make that more clear. And I just want to stress the point that we've talked a lot throughout the term about how much the town council has to do. That was the big justification for those that voted to extend the term of the council, was to try to build up this knowledge, and they have so much to do. So I think it's for that very reason why we have a budget committee that has a little bit of distance from just the municipal side, that's looking on both sides of the equation. That's why the budget committee terms have been longer, right? They're still 4 years, I think. So anyway, I just wanted to, because I can't quite remember if you were here, was it 2 or 3 meetings ago where this came pretty close to, it wasn't a vote, but it came pretty close to a straw vote, so I just wanted to restate my position on that.
So your position is,
An elected budget committee
Elected
with staggered
budget.
4-year terms
Yeah.
should have, just like they did for FTMs and FTRs, and for time immemorial, get the #1 position on the ballot.
Yeah, so, the charter changes where they where they gave the authority of the vote budget to the town council did, I wanna say basically 3 things. First was it changed the calendar. And I do think that does put the school district in particular at a disadvantage The second, the second was it gave to the town council, I know what the other one is. Gave to the second one was it actually made it much harder to put forward a petitioner's budget. You know, if you go back to look at the prior versions of the charter, you only needed 50 elector votes to get a 50 elector signatures to get a petitioner's budget on the ballot, and there was no requirement for due diligence of, you know, was the budget that they put forward even, you know, reasonable, or you know, something that the town could function with. Those two things, you know, you could argue about. I think it was probably better that they raised the threshold for the petitioner's budget. The third thing it did was it took all the authority away from the budget committee and gave it to the town council, and I think that was wrong. And because of primarily they don't have the time to do it, as well as do the work of the town council itself. The second is they're not as objective as they really should be in terms of looking at the budget for the town holistically from both sides of the, you know, major expenditure lines, which are the town and the school system. So you could remedy that by, well, you could remedy the two that I think should be remedied. One is changing the calendar to pushing the calendar to much earlier in the year, up to and including pushing it into the, you know, calendar year beforehand. So like say, you know, you need to really start this process in October, November or something. The second is to put the authority for, you know, the authority that the council has now of adopting the different components of the budget before it goes to the voters could revert to the budget committee. There was a fourth thing that it did that I had sort of forgotten about.
Restricted accounts, I think, or ordinance-based restrictions might be what you're thinking.
No, actually, those were, I mean, those, you could, as, you know, as you're moving the authority to the budget, if we were gonna move the authority for the budget back to the budget committee, you could do the same thing with the ordinances. No, it was that actually the town council and the schools committee each had the ability to put their own budget for their own area on.
Yeah.
And I think that was actually something that had never been exercised, but probably was an important check on each of them, you know, the one or the other, in order to, you know, sort of say, well, you know, if anyway, I would restore that as well, so.
Can I have two, I actually agree with you, but for a couple of other reasons. The petitioner budget, it just struck me that the way it's structured now is the election's over.
It sort of is, you're right.
The election is over, and we're asking now some Joe Doe in the town who really has some problems with stuff and wants to go out and get signatures. And he's gonna be approaching people, they say, what are you doing? We already voted on it. I just think it puts it backwards, and that's another reason it makes it very hard to utilize the petitioner's budget.
Well, if you wanna make that meaningful, you know, that ability,
Yeah.
you
I think
probably
it
need
should-
to loosen it.
And I think it should be at the same time, if you're gonna have the option to have a petitioner budget, then again, go back to have that budget be part of the public hearing. So everybody knows there's openness, and I go back again, that I just think the way the budget is structured now, or the timeline, the town council town administrator submits both to the town council and the budget committee all the necessary information for each of them to do what they're then tasked to do. The budget committee shall prepare and submit to the town council their proposed unified budget, but it doesn't say, and any proposed language necessary to implement the budget, but it doesn't, it just dies at that point.
Right.
And then the next one is the town council shall adopt a unified budget.
Well, and to your point, you know, the town council has plenty to do. And the town administrator has plenty to do
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So putting both of those tasks on those two, you know, entities, people, whoever they may be, is probably a bit too much. The other is if you actually empowered the budget committee, you could, they would be a resource, you know, and I guess theoretically anyway, or an ideal world, you could start the process much sooner than they do now. So they could start that process in the fall. So guess when we, when's the budget adopted for the state of Rhode Island?
June.
June 30th.
June 30th. When does the budget process start for the state of Rhode Island?
January.
June 29th.
July 1st. So yes, the budget,
They go back in session in January.
no, but what I'm
when
getting
they
at
work on
is
the
the
budget?
budget is submitted by the governor
Right.
in January as the state of the state address. The budget process starts July 1st.
Okay.
So the next day, the CFO of the Department of Health is looking
Oh,
at the next
right.
budget.
Right, okay. Now I understand what you're saying.
So, but even to the point, it's submitted to the governor's office
Right.
in early September.
Right.
So, you know, it is an ongoing process, which probably that would be another thing you would want, you know, again, if you want to be able to try and build in structures of fiscal forecasting or trying to build up a reserve, it should be a body that's actually meeting all year round in order to keep an eye on everything as it develops.
Well, I've been arguing this with long-term financial planning.
Right.
That budget committee would be the perfect body to do this. And
Exactly.
honestly, they should be meeting, not necessarily with the same intensity,
I-
but they could be doing that.
I'm not gonna tell them how to do their work,
Right.
but I think if you outlined very specific tasks for them and gave them actually very specific authorities in order to bring to the town, you know, to the electors ultimately, what should happen, then you would actually go a long way towards probably making people feel better about the process to begin with.
I agree.
I was looking at Barrington's budget process. They had a committee on appropriations. And based on everything that they're doing, it sounds like they probably would be the body that meets all throughout the year. So the Committee on Appropriations shall review the detailed budgets of the council and the school committee, and shall meet with those bodies and/or the town manager and the school superintendent as often as necessary to develop a recommended consolidated tentative town budget. So it's actually this committee that puts together the budget.
But-
And do they have the authority to put it on the ballot?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's good.
But you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
We happen to call it a
The
budget committee.
so.
But a committee that could work 12 months out of the year.
Yep. Right.
And not in a limited time just for that.
But not
It
just.
is true, I agree with you that the council has, in my opinion, way more to do.
Right.
They have to have their hands on the budget, that
Right.
is, however, they cannot get it into all the minutia
It has to be
of all
worked
that
on
stuff.
to get-
Now, the administrator does have his hand on the department heads and the budget as it runs each day and knows where the shortfalls are, or should, and I'm sure they do. And that I can see, but the council, I mean, when you think of it, Rob, you being on the council, or Nance, when you think of the time you spend on legal matters, on contracts that you have to ratify, on department head things, on problems in the town,
Right.
on every Tom, Dick, and Harry and Nancy going to you with a problem. You do not have time to review those budgets. I don't care who you are, I've never seen a counselor that can really put that kind of dedication into a budget process, especially for the whole town, including the school department.
Including the schools.
Yeah.
I mean, now you've combined it all. And I'm not saying that I always agreed with where the budget committee went or did or however, but yet it's that body, it's that committee that, you know, I know the council is aware of things, but they are not always aware of all the details of things. The budget committee used to go to the buildings and inspect them, see
Yeah.
where the real problems
And
were.
that's what I was gonna bring up, which is different than what Barrington does, because I've read that too. Barrington, that committee just speaks to the town council and to the administrator. But what the budget committee did in Tiverton was they went directly to these entities.
But
And
the
we talked to
problem with them was everything was duplicated. So committees, department heads, everybody went before the budget committee and explained blah, blah, blah. And then they went before the council and explained blah, blah, blah again. Now that should be a combined effort and a one-time deal. That shouldn't be, I gotta go before the budget committee and explain all my needs and all my this and all my that. And the school committee did the same thing. Went before the budget committee, then again went before the council. You're going to two different bodies. It should be one presentation as opposed to,
Two separate meetings.
I don't
Two
think they ever
separate
went before the
meetings.
council. When the budget committee was, when the budget committee was adopting the budget that went on the ballot, we didn't go before the council.
you didn't go before the
No.
council.
But,
No.
I
With
mean, I
all
would-
departments, it was so
But
redundant.
they should, because they report to the council. I mean, certainly the superintendent went to the school committee and then he had to come with us when we went before the
You
budget
report to
committee.
the administrator and he's to keep the council informed. But to sit night, 2 or 3 nights with the fire department on the budget committee, then another 2 nights with the council on a budget committee, that's redundant. It was a lot.
Yeah, why
Well, they
couldn't
came
they
with-
You're
present
asking these
together?
department
Same
heads that
thing,
have
they
to
do the
run
same presentation,
departments
budget committee, the town council.
to
Actually-
duplicate their efforts.
And sometimes they came multiple times to the budget committee.
Yes,
The school department didn't just come once to the
No.
budget committee.
no.
Right,
Came
yeah,
multiple
several.
times. And if the budget committee had questions, and also the treasurer came.
But
We
that's,
were
you know,
constantly
that's-
getting updates about,
That's the job, sort
Right.
of.
right.
So maybe should it be a series of budget workshops where it is both committees, the budget committee, town council, so that it's one presentation by different departments?
I would,
But I think the
I would offer
details
that-
would have to be worked out by them, but
Yeah.
I would offer that that would be a burden on the members of the town council.
I do too.
And why I say that is because the town council has committees throughout the
Right.
the town that they're members of. And the harbor commission meeting probably has a council member over there, maybe 2. The budget committee would have a council member meeting with them. So the town councilors, and having firsthand knowledge of this, sometimes they're up 4 nights a week.
But aren't they
Aside from their
already
council
having
meetings.
meetings? So I guess
But-
what I'm saying is should some of their council meetings be devoted to budget and have the budget committee there so that they're having those presentations?
So one thing is how the budget committee decides to organize itself and how much guidance they actually get in the charter. So if they, you know, ask to have, as they probably would, you know, various department heads come before them in order to understand the budget, so be it. I think it's up to the council then whether or not they wanna use the time. They want their department heads to come before them before the department heads go to the budget committee. I think that's what we're getting into here, is that they're trying to understand the budget themselves before they have their people who report to them go present before the budget committee. That's similar to the school department, so all the principals would present to the town, or to the school committee, as with the superintendent. Depending, they would also, all the principals and the superintendent would be with us before the budget committee. So it is intense, but it's also somewhat the purview of each of those entities, how they want to, how much of the weeds they want to get into the budget that the department heads are presenting to them. In a lot of regards, you could argue that, and we got very into the details in the school committee about the budget. Should we really have to, or should we really? Because we're not, well, I was not a subject matter expert. Deb and Leanne are subject matter experts in budgets. I learned a lot, as it went along. So, you do have to, I would say, and we all have experience with this, you have to trust the professionals that you're employing as the town, or as the school department to be able to do what they do. And you have to hold them accountable. And, we all have been there where, that's an imperfect art for sure.
The other
And you can't
thing
control
I just noticed
You
too.
can't control everything, correct.
Everything seems backwards the way this is done. But the petitioner's budget coming after the vote's already happened.
Yeah, that can't happen.
And then the town council shall adopt a preliminary unified budget ordinance, an ordinance on or before May 13th, and then schedule a public hearing so then they can tell the public what the budget says. It just does not include the public in any part of this process.
Well, the whole ordinance process is there to tie up and prevent the voter from really proposing anything else, because then they're gonna say, well, it's all tied up in an ordinance.
But see,
And
I
that's
don't,
new.
I don't agree with the petitioner's budget. I'm just gonna come right out and say it.
In general, or?
In general. I mean, we have a budget committee, we have a school committee, we have a council.
I mean, it's an arguable point.
A petitioner's budget, who is the petitioner? We don't know until they submit it. It's a $16 million budget, and one person is gonna submit a budget after a budget committee's been meeting and talking to everybody, and,
Well, I think-
I don't agree with it.
I think that's one of the reasons why people didn't like it.
Yeah.
And why they changed it to make it more difficult. I think you are, it's an arguable point. Do we, sort of, there's no petitioner's budget for the state, there's no petitioner's budget for the federal government.
If
Maybe there should be.
if somebody
but
was really
it's-
adamant about proposing a petitioner's budget as an individual, then run for office.
Yeah,
Get on one of the committees
or,
and be part of it.
or you can also make the process not necessarily more restrictive, but at least require a little bit more due diligence. I think that's always been one of the things that people, myself included, have sort of always been uncomfortable with, is that with 50 signatures, you could,
Right.
it's different now, but, with
Right.
50 signatures, you could throw anything against the wall you wanted to.
Level fund,
Huh?
level fund.
All kinds of things, yeah.
But some districts, some communities do have at least an override
Correct.
of the council.
That's different.
Like Portsmouth.
Right.
They could,
Right.
with so many signatures, they
Right.
can override. It's not their own petition that comes forward,
Correct.
but it can force the council to look at it differently
Right.
and prepare.
That's
That's
different.
how Portsmouth does it.
Yeah.
But their override is, in a sense, it's called an override, but they have to present it as, I want this to be the budget.
No, they
No.
don't. They
Right.
override
A specific
the-
part of
Like
it.
if the budget was voted in and they're not satisfied with that budget, I don't know how many
I
signatures
think it's a
it is.
specific part of the budget too, I don't think it's
So
like.
they can take a
Yeah,
line item
they
and say,
can
we want more
override it
money
and say
than
no,
this, or
where it
less
goes
money
back
than
to the
that.
council, and they have to, you know, now that
That's
at
an
least
interesting idea.
gives the
Voters.
public
Mhm.
some say.
Mhm.
If it's probably just in saying that, you know, I could wanna put a petition in, and what would I know against what the budget committee or the council will,
Or,
I know
you
what the
know, a
council
petitioner
looks
just
like. No,
does
but
the
I mean,
same thing,
what-
but it's an
what I
individual
know.
compared to.
But an override, for me to be able to say no to
Right.
what you approved, and you have to get I don't know how many
Yeah,
they
there's,
get
I think it's a
for it.
percentage of the,
Probably,
Yeah.
it's something. It's no easy task, but they have done it.
They did
call
it.
it a tent minute,
Maybe-
It's a-
tent meeting.
it was before,
It's a
yes, it was a
tent
tent
It was
meeting.
a
It
tent
was-
meeting.
They just,
Yeah.
I don't know how often they've done
recently.
it.
I don't know how often they've done it, and they haven't done it, but it is possible to do.
Yeah.
They have done it, and they had to go back and review that budget and come up with a better budget. Or a different budget, I don't know what was. And I don't think Portsmouth's the only one with an override. They could
So-
be.
Let me bring us back on target, or at least maybe bring the circle a little bit closer to closing. What is it that we're looking at here? Do we want to maintain the budget committee? Change the timeline? Restructure the budget committee in their roles? Eliminate the budget committee? What's the sense of this group?
I would recommend that we restore authority to the budget committee and we expand its role to do both the budget and financial forecasting.
I support that as well.
I support that.
Can you say it one more time? Jump on this
So,
meeting.
so basically, give the budget committee authority over the budget process again. You know, how you write out the actual charge, I think, you know, is something we'd have to sort of work on. But essentially, remove the role that the town council plays in the overall budget and give it back to the budget committee. So something more akin to what we had beforehand, as well as expand its role in terms of starting the process earlier and doing financial forecasting or planning for the town.
That's a lot of stuff
overall.
to vote on all at once.
No, I'm not, we don't
You're not
have
taking
to.
it down as a
No.
motion, right? You're
Yeah.
just discussing.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I'm just saying, I'm painting with a broad brush about what I would recommend we do. Whether or not you then modify the capacity to put forward, you know, those are all related. I think, you know, talking about a petitioner's budget versus an override, I kind of like the idea of an override. It's a different issue, and whether or not you restore to the town council and the school committee the capacity to put in their own budget is also another issue. But to start with, in terms of trying to write the budget process, it would be to, as opposed to eliminating the budget committee altogether, to actually expand its role and to restore its authority over the process.
It's interesting, the override does have a different feel about it. It's, in the sense that it starts on the premise of recognizing a lot of basis of the work that the entities that are charged with doing that work for the town, the budget committee. And then, but if there's just something that disagrees, you're not recreating a whole new structure.
Yeah. And probably the override could be as expansive as it wants to, or as narrow as it wants to, and it could probably be going up and down in terms of changing the number on the budget.
Yep.
Right.
So if we're talking about restoring their role, the budget committee, to create the budget. Their budget would be the one submitted to the unified budget. Expanding it to include financial, how do you want to phrase that?
Financial forecasting.
Forecasting, okay. Is this something that we have an interest in having further discussion and moving this forward? Or is somebody so adamantly opposed to this that we need to see what the majority here feels? We need to, I guess what we need to do is kind of find a focus here, so that we can figure out what we want to do, and then we can figure out how we're gonna phrase this and frame it.
So I could make a motion for you if you want, that might focus it. Does that help?
I'm open.
So I'm gonna make a motion that the budget committee assume the authority currently rested with the town council in terms of arriving at a unified budget, and that it be also charged with financial analysis and forecasting for the town's financial position as a whole.
Just discussion on that. Jerry, are you saying you would not give the council the ability to also present a unified budget?
So
I guess
there's
technically, do
two
we have a
different
second?
things.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Okay,
now
so
discussion.
the way I'm understanding the way the charter is written right now, the charter refers to what's called the unified budget. That's the overall town budget. It's taking that function away from the town council, which has it now, and restoring it to the budget committee, which has had it in the past. The town council would presumably still be responsible for coming up with a municipal budget that they then present to the budget committee as they did previously.
Remember
Town
when,
council had its budget on the ballots, yes.
So that's a different, so there was in the charter previously, before 2022, so it was 22 that we started the new process. So they had the ability to place their budget separately on the ballot, but,
as did the school.
as did the schools, but what was on the ballot otherwise was quote-unquote a unified budget adopted by the budget committee that gave a budget to the school committee, it gave a budget to the town council, and it had capital in it as well, if I recall correctly. As well as a bunch of other ordinances that, buildings get transferred. There was stuff about restricted receipt accounts and paving, and that you had to, there was a whole list of, you put it together.
Yeah.
So you should tell me. But there was a whole bunch of other stuff that would be on the ballot, but the authority to place a ballot, a unified budget before the voters would revert back to the budget committee. And they would have an expanded role in sort of forecasting and analysis and forecasting. We would have to look at the language as it exists in the charter now to figure out how to actually enable this.
I'm just remembering way back when we used to have the big town financial meeting in the auditorium, and you had the different budgets presented along with the budget. There was a budget committee's budget, and you had the town council's budget. And and then you all had somebody in the middle of the stands.
Well, that was a difficult system, but I guess I'm hung up on this
So-
unified budget being only one budget.
That's the term that they're using. That's always
Yeah.
it's always been a single budget, even though you're right, the town budget, the school committee presented their budget, in those financial
Yeah.
town meetings, there was still only a single budget that was ever adopted that was for the entire town.
Correct.
That, and that's what they're, when they, in the current text of the charter, that is what they refer to as the unified budget. Is that single budget, schools, capital, town, municipal. And that's, that, you're basically saying, who has the authority to put that on the ballot? And right now it's the town council.
Yeah, so
Would be putting
if
it
it
back
in
to
fact went to that authority went to the budget committee, I could see that if in fact, and I think that's beyond our ability to get, the budget committee had the ability to change as we saw the budget committee just coming up at the end and coming,
Yeah.
meeting in January to June or whatever. Met year round, interacted with the administrator or the council or the superintendent. There's so much that would have to be put on that budget committee
Yeah,
for them to be able to do this.
yeah, I'm not
I
worried
mean,
about
as
that.
what we think of, as what the budget committee has done to this point, would not satisfy me in that. I mean, I
You
think
mean the
it's
current
got
budget
much,
committee? You mean the current budget committee this year?
no, I don't mean just this
Oh.
current budget
Oh,
committee, I
okay.
mean the budget committee as we've known it, where it starts to meet in what, January, is that when you meet, the
Mm.
budget committee?
You
From
unified
January
meeting.
to May, if they're going to be the ones to have the financial oversight to get that unified budget, they would have to be a committee committed to working year-round at this, as opposed to just this January, and we'll see you in May or June when we put it on the ballot.
Well-
And now we want the dates
Yeah.
pushed back a little to help the school department
I think that's what we're suggesting, is that it should be
year round.
and that's why you're expanding its charge, if you will. Hopefully they take up the charge and meet it.
But I think one goes hand in hand with the other,
Correct.
so
And maybe,
they,
in some regards, maybe that's what was the
what a
motivation
finance
behind
committee would
taking
be
their.
doing. Oh.
Well, I'm just sort of thinking,
What my finance committee would be doing, Sherry? Is that what their job would be?
I mean, you are creating an entity, you are giving them as an entity another role, which is to be looking at the town's financial position long-term, as well as starting the budget process overall earlier in the year, so that you have more ability to meet the statutory requirements that the school department in particular has to meet about cutting teaching positions, if that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I don't really see how it's any different than years past. We could
It's-
say it's year round.
Yeah.
Being more explicit about their charge to, right now.
Yeah, when you look at their
Yeah.
duties and responsibilities in here, it's very, very limited.
Oh, no, I know it is now, I mean, in the
Now it is,
olden
but
days.
it
Yeah.
didn't used to.
But nothing stopped the budget committee 10 years ago from
No,
doing.
but
all
they
that.
didn't,
Yeah.
and because they probably, as far as I know,
To some
they didn't
degree,
really
yeah.
start to meet until January, and then they really just did the budget, and then we're off. I think this is giving them a more
Yeah, I-
substantial role, because we need an entity to do it, and the town council itself, I think, is too busy doing other things, as they should be doing them. I'm not faulting them in that, I'm just saying it's too much for them to do everything as basically volunteer town officials, as we all are.
So
I like having the Public Works Department know that every month they have to have a so-called budget together to present to the Budget Committee. So the Budget Committee can keep an eye on what's going on, so that when the Public Works Department says, we're gonna need X amount of dollars to run our department next year, we've got a Budget Committee that has looked through it and said, well,
But we have that.
yeah, but
We
I'm
have
saying,
that,
but at
the
least we got
treasurer
the.
every month gives a runoff on what's been spent, what hasn't been spent, the whole budget, every item, item by item.
But we'll have a budget committee that is following it and instead of putting it all together town-wise.
Well, the budget committee has always had those reports. Not, I don't know about the last few years, but they've always gotten those reports. The treasurer's report. It's online. Everybody can get it. But, and that report is provided every single month, along with reports on police and fires, overtimes, and this, that, and the other. Because some of those budgets are very intricate. So how, if I were a council person, it would take me a few years to figure out how that police department or fire department goes with the overtime shifts. And it's just not something easy to learn right away. And that's why I think it would have to go hand in hand with the idea of, we're calling it a budget committee, other towns might call it something else, but it is really finance.
It's
Finance.
finance-based,
Yeah.
and the town council's basis of their job is not
Is not
finance.
finance.
Right? That's why you have the town administrator in there.
Well, they have to have some
Oh, yeah,
ability
but
of
that's
finance,
not
they're
their
doing
primary.
contracts
Their
and,
primary.
And I think it should go year-round, not this short period of time.
Well, we start
From
that.
Jan,
you
yeah,
defeat the
from Jan-
purpose.
We have to start early.
We gotta start, gotta do it all, it's gotta be a year-round. Especially if we got a school department that really needs to get their budget earlier than.
Well, and part of if we adopt this motion, you would have to figure out the verbiage, and you would also have to figure out the dates, because those are actually in the charter itself, I believe. Pretty sure.
Yeah,
well, some of our stuff we're just putting forward in statements. I mean, we don't have to go through every bit of the detail. As far as the dates, couldn't we not just submit something that says, we're recommending that the dates, the required dates, be moved back,
I
say,
think
a
we would
month
have
or
to,
so?
we have to put this before the town council for them to vote on or not. I think we would have to be
Well,
very
the
specific.
council's not gonna vote on our recommendation. Are they gonna vote on our recommendation?
They're gonna move
In
it
order for
forward to
them
the
to get on the
ballot.
ballot.
We're advisory.
They're not gonna put them on the ballot if they don't want to.
Correct.
Right,
Right.
but, so we have to make a report recommendation,
Yeah.
something, to the town council. Town council, according to the town solicitor,
Has to have a
according to the town
public hearing.
solicitor, no, according to the town solicitor, it has to be adopted by the town council for it to get on the ballot. And then the
Right.
ballot goes before the voters, and has to be adopted by the voters. So
Which,
anything
by the
that
way,
we,
this whole system has been,
right, so, but anything that we
whether
want,
they understand it.
anything that we want to put before the voters, we have to put before the town council. I think anything that we put before the town council has to be very specific. This is how the language would change, and for
I
these
agree.
reasons, as
Oh, I
opposed
thought we
to.
said we weren't gonna get into all the details of the
Something like
language.
this.
We're gonna let
We're
the
gonna
attorneys do that.
prioritize certain things, but if it's, I would say if it's a significant change, and I think that this would be, that we would need to find some level of detail for them to envision. You know, if we just said, move up the timeline for budget process,
Yeah, that's
that
not
could
gonna
be,
fly.
but if we said move it up by approximately 1 month, then that at least gives them some idea.
I think you gotta remember that whatever we put forward that the town council accepts is gonna go on the ballot. And
Right.
we can't have, I don't think we want to have a 4-page ballot of the discussion. So maybe bullet points on this particular topic, you know, with the general discussion of what, if it comes to this point, if we agree on this, then if we say that the budget committee would become the budget creators, they will do this by starting in September, putting it forward by March 30th, and at that point, no, I think we need to leave it out for the council to have an ability to put a budget forward as well.
Well, the budget, I think that both the
Right,
school
so-
committee and the town council should have the right to have, within that time frame, there's gotta be a place where the school committee or the town council puts their own budget.
Yeah,
But they'll have to submit something, but what goes on the ballot? The school committee,
so
do we give them the ability to put something on the ballot? And so we could have
We did.
three?
That's what
That's
it has
okay.
been in the past.
So the actual charter provision said that it had to be, this was the interpretation again of the solicitor at the time. I think it was actually Marcelo. Was it Marcelo? Pretty sure it was. I don't know. It was one of them. There was a solicitor. So the question always in my mind was, if the schools or the municipal, the council exercised that, you know, ability to put their own budget on, did it have to be the budget that was presented to the budget committee, or could it be a budget that, or that they, so there's a date where the town, or there's a date when by which the school committee had to adopt the budget. I think that's the budget that would have, it was the interpretation of the solicitor at the time, that is the budget that would have to be put on the ballot if the school committee exercised its right to put a budget separately on the ballot. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I remember the wrestling with that issue.
Yes. You know, yeah.
It also provides an incentive for everybody to collaborate and persuade the
Right.
budget committee, because
But,
it's hard to have both bodies updating right up to the last moment.
right,
At some point, one has to stop, and the other can keep updating to the last moment.
right. So, so anyway, you know, that I think is a separate issue from whether or not we restore the authority of the budget committee and expand its scope, and maybe we want to take that up. Again, I still think that we would have to give very specific verbiage of how the text of the charter itself would change to the town council once we get before them, so that they know exactly what they're voting on.
I agree, and we have to keep in mind, I know everybody's got this in the back of their mind, that we have a 4% state limit on what the budget can be. So if a school budget
Oh,
came
that's always
forward.
still there, yeah.
Right, so what will be the
Well, that can be
tools?
overridden.
Yeah, but it's
Correct.
almost nearly impossible. You have to have a vote of the legislature, I think.
No,
After
the
the
town
fact,
council
yes.
can override it. 4/5 vote.
It's gotta be the legislature ultimately, I think.
I think the legislature has to approve.
Yeah, because it's a state law, it's a
Yeah.
state
Tax cap change on me, and I didn't notice. It's always been overridden by the council 4/5 vote.
But if it's a state cap,
That's why
how
we-
can the council
They've
override
never
it?
It
override
has to go before the state, because, but it's
What a
usually
great
rubber
question.
stamped.
It
When I
just
first
happens
got
in Little
involved,
Compton.
the council failed to take the vote,
Uh-huh.
but it was overridden. They just didn't take the vote.
Little Compton just had this.
Certain taxpayers, the first time guy got involved in all this, he said, I think you should have taken that vote.
Unfortunately.
But you can't just approve it at the local level.
Right.
It has to go, most of the time it's
Actually,
rubber
I thought it
stamped
was,
by the legislature.
Right,
Because
especially if
the-
a town is coming to
isn't the state
rep and
auditor
saying
have to
this is
do
what
it?
we want.
Right.
Something about the state auditor or some state official who has to approve it too.
Yeah, the Department of Administration, you had to apply,
That's who it is? Okay.
which also wasn't done when I first got involved.
All right.
But we did, I think when we adopted the FTR, we then made it a ministerial requirement that if an FTR voter, an electorate petition, wanted to break the tax cap, that the council had to go apply for it and vote for it. And that that was all approved, and, you know, people, they liked that idea. There was none of this, like, you can't tell the town council what to do. Of course you could. It was put in the charter as a mandatory ministerial obligation, just like they have a lot of ministerial obligations, which is why I think they also have a ministerial obligation to put our recommendations on the charter. But,
Yes.
so,
Agree with you there.
but you're right, there was, unless they've changed the tax cap law, it needed a 4/5 vote, and it needed approval by Department of Administration. And we
Okay.
baked that in. They had to do it,
Yeah,
even if it was after the fact.
yeah.
Well, assuming we can get the, and I'll be glad to help work on it, but if we can get the verbiage in a place where we're comfortable with, the charter's gonna reflect what we're talking about. Do you wanna have a vote?
I think we should all sleep on it overnight.
I was gonna just say, if we're gonna vote here, I'm gonna vote against it. Only because I think we need to hash it out a little bit further. But I think it's got value, and I think we need to discuss it and
And
find
I
a
like
way.
Rob's idea of, let's sleep on it, talk about it
I know,
tomorrow.
we're coming back here tomorrow.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We can leave the motion
Yep.
live and talk about it again tomorrow, or we can argue and withdraw. At your pleasure.
Might leave it out there, it's something,
Okay.
Can you reiterate the motion for me, please? I'm
as
sorry.
I've written it, and then Jerry, please tell me if I've got it wrong, Jay Larkin moved to propose that the budget committee assume the authority currently vested with the town council at arriving at a unified budget, and is also charged with financial analysis and forecasting for the town's financial position as a whole, period.
Perfect.
So basically, they do the legwork. Basically, that's,
They now are the entity that places a budget on the ballot.
okay.
So it's going back to something similar to what we had before, but also giving them a different set of responsibilities of, doing analysis and forecasting for the town. Now, whether we go, again, the 2022 changes did a few other things, including making it harder for the petitioner budget to be put on the ballot, removing the ability of the town council or the school committee to put its own budget on the ballot, and then it also altered the calendar, which was and still is in the charter, so
Right.
we may want to take those up as well.
Those are very different things, all three.
They're all very different things,
Mhm. They'd have to-
but they're related, and I think of the three of them, there are things I do and don't like about all three of them, but I think the thing that's most critical is probably changing the calendar because of the position it puts the school committee.
And I think it
School
would be
district.
wise to present those changes in those three areas separately, so that
I agree.
they could be voted on
Yeah.
separately by the town councils,
Right.
and with the
Yeah.
priority
Oh, yeah,
being
yeah.
the timeline.
So they should all be, I think they should all be separate motions for us,
Yes.
as well as separate things
Mhm.
that we place before the council.
Mhm.
Do we have this as food for thought for the night?
Yes, please.
Is-
So
I
did
make a
anyone
motion that
second
we
your motion?
think
Yes.
about it.
Oh.
Rob
When I-
seconded his motion.
We can just
But
leave it
we'll-
live, I think, I don't
Yeah,
think we have to.
oh, all right.
Jerry, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. You said that when the superintendent was talking about dates and whatnot, he thought May was not bad. But did you say that a date in May as opposed to a March date would be okay?
So, if I remember correctly, historically, the budget was adopted by the budget committee in April. Yes, it had to be adopted in April, because then the financial town hearing was in May, and then it was early May, and the referendum had to be
Yeah, first.
in sometime in, it was usually like the middle to towards around May 20th or so, something like that. And the reason that that was important was because the notices have to go out June 1st. And it's not just that the notices have to go out June 1st. That's kind of the opening bell for teachers who might be looking to move, but also, more importantly, if they're gonna get laid off, they're gonna start looking for a job
And we'll be sure.
before June 30th, and they may be able to get one. And they may take it, because they don't know that their job is secured come June
So
30th.
what's the date, now, just so
So,
that I
so
have
the last
something to
date,
think about.
the last date, it used to be
Think of.
actually March, which is really nuts. But the last date that, so if you are not laid off by June 1st,
Right, so
then
that's
the
bad.
district can't lay you off. And then, if the budget is showing a shortfall for the school's budget, then you're scrambling, you're trying to figure out, what are you gonna do now?
Yeah.
Okay? But, right now, because the budget's not adopted till June 30th, you have to lay off all these people by June 1st. So they have this limbo. So the district has to lay people off by June 1st because they can't after that. And then there are these 30 days that elapse between then and the adoption of a budget. And in a bad budget year, that's what happened in, again, going back to 2020. We had to notice something like 42 people. I forget exactly what the number was. It was terrible. We had to notice all these people because we had to make it so that it was actually a dress rehearsal, if you will, for what goes on now, which is that because we had to lay people off by June 1st, but the town had not adopted a budget because it was COVID. And so the legislature gave us until September to adopt it, and then it wound up being level funded. So we had to lay off all these people before June 1st, because that statute stood. It was crazy.
Jerry, did you hear him say tonight that the superintendent, I just wrote down layoffs had to be by 6/1.
Yeah.
And then we were sort of looking for what date, so what
Yeah,
date's he
that's what I'm
looking
saying.
for?
What
And
are
what
they
he-
looking for?
So
what he
you
said
wouldn't
was
want-
six weeks earlier than 6:30.
Yeah, he said
Yeah,
5 or
so-
6 weeks.
So it wasn't perfect, but basically the calendar where the budget was ultimately adopted by sometime in mid-May
Yeah.
did give the district the
Or,
flexibility.
right, to say the latest, because they still
Right.
have to have so once they get the final number, they need to still go back and relook at budget
Yes.
and staffing. So school committee needs to have their meeting, do all of that work to get ready.
That's also-
Have their
yes.
meeting, then vote, so that would be the latest, would be like mid-May. But if there's any way to back it up more than that.
Yeah.
The other issue is that you raised, so you lay staff off, and then they don't know if they have a job.
And they
And
don't
if they
hire them back
don't-
until August.
Right, if they don't, if they take something else in the meantime, now you have to advertise again, so you are starting school
Right.
without the appropriate staff in place
Right.
on the first day of school.
If you're able to adopt a budget, so there's also the variable of the state budget, but by the middle of May, state aid is not likely to change. So if you were able to adopt a townwide budget by May 1st, then you know you do or do not need to lay off staff in the school district.
Even if you did it by May 10th. I'm just trying to say,
Yeah.
I don't
Well, June
know how
1st is
far they
okay.
want to go
So-
one way or another.
So one of the things that Diane was alluding to is like, depending on how you constructed the calendar, if it was like June 22nd, say, that you adopted the budget, okay, you've got 9 days to do the layoffs.
You mean May 22nd? Yeah.
Well, yeah, sorry, May 22nd, you've got theoretically 9 days to do the layoffs, right? Oh, that's easy. No, you
Yeah.
have to like,
You have to notice teachers.
you have to notice
it's a
teachers,
whole
you have to
big-
post a school committee meeting, you have to have the school committee be able to meet with a quorum to adopt the layoffs.
But May 10th would give you a little
I mean,
more edge.
if you really wanted to
You could
say-
pre-notice the meeting.
Huh?
They
Yeah,
can
you
pre-can
can.
that, we
Well,
could save a couple days
You
there.
can, if you
A
don't.
lot better than June 30th.
You probably don't have to specify in the agenda who's, you could pre-notice the meeting, you're right.
Yeah.
I feel like
Any
but
time
to-
back
to-
is gonna
To
help.
know that you're giving them sufficient, buffer, you know, you could pick May 1st.
Yeah,
Because
May
normal
10th.
I wouldn't go
Yeah.
past May 1st. so.
How's the deadline, June first or June, it's June first?
June 1st is
For
what
the
it
whole
has.
calendar month of May.
That would be very helpful.
Because a lot of the other figures need to come in to get a full budget. It's not just the school department. On the municipal side, we
Yeah.
also
Revenue.
have numbers that have to come in. So I would say a May 1st, I'm just
Yeah.
thinking out
I mean,
loud, but May 1st sounds better than,
If I was gonna build a calendar, I'd make it very easy. I would say you have to adopt the budget committee has to adopt a budget for the town council by April 1st. Okay? You have to have a petitioner's budget submitted by whatever day in April. And then the referendum has to be done, you know, first Saturday in May, or something like that. That would probably give everybody enough leeway and now
which
also.
puts us right back to the time that we had on the
Sure,
That's how it used
FDR,
to be.
which always seemed to work out.
In terms of this particular issue, yes. And then also, you know, even the people that you noticed, yeah, actually, that's on a whole other story. Again, the state aid is unlikely to change by May 1st, so you can, you would be able to, if it did change drastically, there's always that risk of then not having to lay people off, but it's never likely to go down by that date, or at least not in the 14 years that I've been paying attention to it.
If I have a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?